Welcome to the Village podcast. I am your host, Nicole Trumfio. My why has always been to empower women and amplify the voices of mothers. We created the Village to share stories and ideas to embody the innate wisdom of a village, but on a modern day platform. I hope this podcast inspires, educates, and informs you and brings you the joy, love, and light you deserve. Welcome to the Village.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Village podcast. I am so excited to introduce our next guest. It is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and I know a lot of people in my community really have a lot of questions towards endometriosis, and this particular guest has been such a champion for bringing awareness on the subject and fighting and redefining what this actually is and means to women. She is an icon. I admire her. I aspire to be more like her. She's the coolest of cool. Please welcome to the podcast, Chelsea Leyland. Welcome to the Village.
First of all, thank you for having me. What an intro. I don't even know how I can follow that, because coming from you, it's like the biggest compliment in the world. And the feelings are so mutual, and you're such a force. And I'm so grateful for you always being so inspiring and so supportive. So it's particularly special to be recording this podcast with you for Endometriosis Awareness Month. Feeling a really incredible feminine energy right now. We've been involved in a lot of events this week, and I've been in the rooms of such inspiring women, and it's just magnetic, that energy, and I think we just need more of it. So yeah, grateful to be here.
How did you even find out about your endometriosis?
My journey with endo started, I mean, honestly, as long as I've had a period, for the most part. I think I started my period at 13 and started getting really horrific pain at about 15. And it just started with debilitating cramps that just became increasingly worse and worse and worse. So much so that I started to pass out and vomit on a regular occurrence. And, you know, I talk about this a lot, which is one of the main issues, I think, the broader issues with, you know, these female women's health issues and just periods in general, is that we have normalized pain for women. It is slightly changing now, but there are women that are going misdiagnosed, undiagnosed. There are women that don't even feel they can go to their physician and talk about these issues because of the taboo nature of menstruation, because they're too embarrassed, because they've experienced medical gaslighting in the past. And that was really my journey. You know, I waited 10 plus years to receive a diagnosis, which is shocking when you say that out loud. But the most shocking part is that is the average diagnosis time. And when I connect with other women with endo, it's rare. Honestly, it is rare to meet somebody that doesn't have that same 10 year, 15-year story to reach their diagnosis. So, you know, it was 10 years of passing out, vomiting, ending up in the emergency room. I was hospitalized countless times. My hands to like lock out when I started getting this extreme pain, because I would be hyperventilating and I wouldn't be taking in enough oxygen. And a lot of people are familiar with this with panic attacks, where your hands actually go into like a lock, which as somebody that also has epilepsy was terrifying, because I used to think I was having a seizure then. I think, you know, my experience really was every time I went to my general practitioner, to my OBGYN, I was hospitalized, I was always met with the same response, which was pretty much, periods are painful.
Wow. And they would just give you like painkillers?
Before painkillers, the step before that was birth control.
So how old were you when you started going on birth control?
You know, what's funny is I never took birth control.
You never did it?
Never did it. And I think the reason that I didn't was because I was taking a lot of medicine for my epilepsy. And there was something intuitive inside me, as well as telling me that there was something wrong with me, that was also telling me synthetic hormones are not for me. And I was honestly made to feel like a silly little girl, like a silly little idiot for not following the doctor's recommendations.
Yeah.
And as a result, I was put on a cocktail of different painkillers, which wreaked havoc on my gut health for, many, many, many years, until finally, I think my OBGYN said, there's a condition called endometriosis. In order to diagnose it, it's a very invasive procedure, but we can do it. I do not think you have it. I remember her saying this verbatim, but we will check, and we will do a laparoscopic procedure. Lo and behold, I had it. I was covered in endo. I had the excision surgery. I had about 6 months of relief, and then it just came back with vengeance. And this is, again, sadly, the case for so many women and menstruating people who have endo. I know people who've had like 7 surgeries because it just grows back.
And when you say grows back with a vengeance, is it worse every time after the surgery?
I think in my case, my pain, it just sort of changed position. And I think, I think all this to say, there's a desperate need for more research, not just with endometriosis, but with all of these conditions that affect women. You look at a condition like diabetes. I think for every $200 that's put behind diabetes research, $1 is put behind endo, and endo is as prevalent as diabetes. We know nothing about it. And I think, there is some really, really interesting research and pioneering research that's happening in the last couple of years. And I hope that we continue. And it's really, I find it's physicians, it's scientists that have the condition that are really pushing the needle forward.
It's such a new thing. I feel like we've only been just kind of talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was diagnosed, which I guess was about probably around 10 years ago, I just remember thinking, no one had this rare condition.
Right.
I didn't know anyone that had it. And then I remember making my first friend. I think when you have a chronic condition, you always remember that moment, because I have epilepsy as well. And I'll never forget when I made my first friend with epilepsy. But, now I'm surrounded by women with endometriosis. And actually, I'm going to show you this T-shirt that, can you see? So this is a T-shirt.
I love it.
A charity that I work very closely with called The Cycle. We just designed it with Jemima Kirk, the amazing
I love her.
actress, I know from Girls, and this is her artwork. And The Cycle are doing incredible work in India. They actually started off as a sort of clean sanitation, bringing kind of like clean sanitation to sort of communities, underdeveloped communities in India. And that's led to their menstrual health program, which is really about going into communities and educating, even community leaders, teachers, but also young boys, young men, because there's so much shame and stigma there that, girls drop out of school when they have their periods. They don't have access to clean menstrual products. They're often raped when they're trying to change any sort of menstrual product, because they're sort of banished to period huts. And this charity, We Are the Cycle, they've also launched an incredible endometriosis program to help young girls get diagnosed, help them, reach that diagnosis, but also help them get support and treatment. And so we're launching this T-shirt today, but we did a launch dinner the other night, and I was sitting around so many women that had endometriosis, and it was just so incredibly powerful just to be able to sit there and talk about being constipated your whole entire life. It's so much more than just menstrual pain, during your period. Some people have daily pain, some people have lower back pain during intercourse, infertility. It's a really, really debilitating condition that really impacts people's lives.
When you found out about your endometriosis, how did that feel? Like when you finally got a diagnosis after all of these years of pain and not knowing why?
I think it's like that sort of that piece of feeling validated. And again, this is something that I think is really the case for so many women, where I think after years and years of that kind of medical gaslighting, you start to question your own sanity. I think I've met women who say, I actually started to think I was a total wimp, started thinking I had a problem with my pain threshold, and pain is complicated because it's so subjective. But I think finally being like, yes, there's something wrong with me. I'm not going crazy. And I think just like teaching me to trust myself.
Yeah.
That's really important. What is incredible about women is that we're so intuitive. We have been taught not to trust ourselves.
Yes. This is the
Right?
whole reason we're doing the podcast, is like the village. If we were in a village, we would all learn how to trust our own intuition based on stories, women sharing stories, and like just witnessing all of the things that were happening that are normal, instead of hearing about it, or us having to go to a doctor and not being validated, as you're saying, or being medically gaslit, which is such a crazy thing to even consider. But yeah, absolutely. Intuition, especially if a woman's intuition is very, very potent, if she knows how to tap into it and if she's able to like access it.
And just like having that trust in yourself, because sometimes it's like we feel these gut feelings, right? Which is our intuition. We feel something's wrong. We don't trust ourselves because we haven't learned to trust ourselves. And my endometriosis led me to lose 2 babies. I had a very, very long road to get my beautiful baby boy that I have today. And I'm so grateful, because there are a lot of women with endo and other conditions that, that don't get that happy ending. And we often miss those. We miss those people, I think, when we talk about fertility. We often hear about, oh, my friend had 5 miscarriages and then she went on to have a baby. Oh, my friend did 5 rounds of IVF. But we often forget that there are still those women out there who are so incredible. I take my hat off to them, because they don't get the happy ending, and they have to learn to, live with this fact that they've wanted something, they've wanted to be a mother so badly, and that they don't get to experience that. I always like to sort of like, take my hat off to that community. But I lost my right fallopian tube, and it's funny because I was spotting before, and I remember going to the emergency room. I was in London at the time, where I'm from, and I said, I think there's something wrong. Da, 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 da. They checked my vitals, and I remember the male doctor, I said, do you think I didn't even really understand what an ectopic pregnancy was at that point. I said, do you think it could be an ectopic pregnancy? And he looked at me and he said, if you were having an ectopic pregnancy, you would be seriously ill right now. And I went home and was like, okay, I'm absolutely fine. And then the next day I went to have a scan, and I remember just, being so excited. I wanted this baby for so many years already. And within 5 minutes, I just remember the sonographer saying to me, this is your baby. It's sitting in your fallopian tube, and this might rupture in a second. We need to get you into surgery like ASAP. And so I, left the hospital, and I was in surgery 35 minutes later, having my tube removed. But again, I come back to that piece we were discussing about trusting yourself, like
You knew
there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And I think you've got to listen to the patient, and you've got to take a more personalized approach. And I think that's why I'm such a fan of, alternative medicine, holistic approaches to healthcare, integrative functional medicine, TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, not just treating the symptom and saying, hey, here's a drug, here's a pharmaceutical drug that treats the symptom, and it's a one size fits all, which is what we're doing with birth control, right? So we're taking something that serves an incredible purpose, and we're just like blanket sort of solution for, oh, you have acne, take birth control. Oh, you have issues with your mood, you have PMS, you have PMDD, you have endometriosis, you have PCOS. And, young girls are being put on birth control, and then they're getting to sort of 31, whatever it is, 32, and they're saying, oh, I think I want to start trying for a baby. And they come off it and they've got all these problems, and they don't know what to do, because they're saying, well, where have all these, suddenly I've got PCOS. And well, no, you always had that issue, but you've suppressed your cycle for so long. You've removed yourself from this very natural bodily function. And so you don't understand your body. You have to kind of catch up, because you haven't done any learning. And I think our cycles, and, Looni, which is my menstrual health and wellness company, we talk about the fact that the menstrual cycle is really a doorway into understanding the rest of your body. And I think we've been historically taught, which is just so, the shame is just so entrenched in everything, right? Even the names, I don't even want to go into them because they actually, a lot of them make me laugh, but some of the
Yeah.
things that periods have been called, right? The
And
curse.
even I think, like we spoke about, we get told all the time, we're crazy, you're acting crazy, and you're a lunatic, and where that, I want you to talk about where that
Yeah.
comes from too.
We've all been called crazy and hormonal, and you're a lunatic and you're unhinged. I mean, don't get me started on hysteria and that kind of piece of history. But I think we wanted to claim ownership again of that because,
Beautiful.
you know, we
Wow.
all
I just got goosebumps. Yes. Hell yes.
our mission at Looni is to elevate the menstrual cycle and demystify hormonal health. And I think it's always starts with education, right? So if we can teach, you know, young women and young menstruators at such an early age about, you know, how to optimize their hormones, how to
Yeah.
understand the cycle, rather than just seeing it as this burden that we're trying to get rid of, that we're trying to suppress with birth control, that it's disgusting, that it's gross. You know, even looking at language is so important. The impact that has had on us, we don't even realize things like sanitary products. As if we're dirty, that we need to have these like sanitary products.
Yeah.
Why not just call them menstrual products or period
Yeah.
products?
Yes.
And so the cycle really is this incredible doorway into understanding the rest of our health. If you are having extremely painful periods, if you have bad acne, if you have extreme bloating, tender breasts, you know, low moods, anxiety, insomnia, that is not normal and there is something wrong. And that is when you need to go and see your, you know, physician, your ideally somebody that is a bit more holistic in their approach.
A
I
naturopath.
think
Yeah.
I think the problem is we have just been told that periods should be painful.
Yeah. That's what I love about you. You're such a badass and you're such a trailblazer because with your epilepsy, I remember you being like an activist and finding cannabis was really healing and helping with epilepsy. And I remember all of your work on that. And it was just kind of a really monumental moment in the world and trying to find this medicine that can help epilepsy. And you're curious, you don't take no for an answer. You're not like, okay, this is what I'm being told I have to do, so I'm going to go do it. You take it a million steps further and find out, okay, what's really going on here? What's really the root cause? How can I really, either support myself or heal myself? And so would you say, because I know we were talking about, the pill like counteracting, is that correct in saying like endometriosis, the pill is used to suppress or take the edge off the pain, or is that what it's kind of used for?
The pill is used to suppress the period,
Yes,
so that then you do not experience a lot of the symptoms that
as much pain
yeah,
and other symptoms.
and
So,
other things.
so you said no. Would you say to a young woman that is being diagnosed with endometriosis that she shouldn't take the path of the pill? And what path would you recommend, if so?
I mean, listen, I always say first and foremost, I'm not a physician and I'm not best placed to give any medical advice. Each
Yeah.
individual requires something different. So it is not right for me to say, the pill is not the best route, because somebody might be managing a whole other host of issues at home, a young girl, who knows what they are going through, what their home life is
Absolutely.
like, what their school life is like. And so that might be the best option for them at that moment. I would say if somebody has the ability, and often, sadly, especially in the US, that does require a level of privilege, I think, to be able to go and see, a more holistic physician, and actually establish what I like to call a toolbox. But I think if somebody is in that position where they have, the means and access, I would always say start with seeing somebody who can look at your whole body, your whole being, um,
Mm,
from, what does your current stress levels look like? what was your stress levels like historically? Somebody who can talk to you about taking up a mindfulness practice, whether that's, meditation or yoga, understanding how inflammatory foods can affect a condition, which is an inflammatory condition like endo. So I think, my advice would be establish a toolbox. Like my toolbox consists of
Yes, I would
Loonies.
love to know what you do. Yes.
So
So Looni is amazing.
we have a supplement called Balance Beam, which has been clinically formulated by our incredible team of physicians, ranging from OBGYNs to, integrative physicians. We have a herbalist on the team. We've tried to really take that holistic approach.
Yeah.
And it is a blend of adaptogens, vitamins, minerals, and nootropics. And we have conducted a third-party study to prove efficacy. But our product is really helpful with, hormonal regulation. So really trying to get to the root, not just treating the symptom. And, we've been very much influenced, I think, by like traditional Chinese medicine in terms of
amazing
Ayurvedic herbs as well.
Love Ayurveda, yes. And that's an everyday supplement or just when you're on your period?
An everyday supplement. It's 2 a day. It's a very beautiful supplement as well as being effective.
It looks beautiful too. So Looni is like one of the things in your toolbox.
I take magnesium as well daily. I take magnesium glycinate. I also have citrate on hand, magnesium citrate on hand as well.
What brand do you use? Because I've heard a lot of different things about magnesium over the years, and I love to take it too, especially to go to sleep.
And swear by Pure Encapsulation. I love that brand. I trust that brand. I've used it for a while now. And magnesium is great. Most people with endometriosis are deficient in magnesium. It also incredibly helpful with one's process of elimination, and most people with endometriosis get very backed up. I am somebody that could easily not go to the bathroom for 4 days.
Wow.
Something inflammatory like gluten.
Yeah.
I think just like nutrition and having that, I guess understanding and education around how certain foods impact your PMS, your endo, is another tool in my toolbox. So
do you follow a diet at all?
I really try to follow an anti-inflammatory diet, where possible, avoiding gluten, sugar, caffeine, or at least being mindful about how much of those things I'm consuming. Now that's not achievable every day. I'm also somebody that I like the good life. I love my red wine. I love coffee. I love all the yummy things. I love dark chocolate, but it's just about moderation, I think. I use flax seeds a lot, also help with hormone balance and my process of elimination. So really focus on foods that help me go, because the problem is a lot of the time with conditions like endometriosis, there's excess estrogen. And actually, if we aren't getting rid of this estrogen, it's essentially being recycled back into our system, and then we're just having a problem with it. Our estrogen is just increasing. And so it's really important that we go to the bathroom and we get rid of toxins. That's that
absolutely
process. And then having a mindfulness practice is so key. Raised cortisol is so much more, I don't think people understand the impact that it has. Everyone's sort of say, yeah, I know stress is not good for this and this and that. Stress is a killer, and it's one of the hardest things to eliminate, or bring down. And so I would say that's always the area that people leave. They leave it to kind of last because they don't know how to address it. People who live in New York are just like, they're in fight or flight mode, just living here. So
yeah, absolutely.
Having a meditation practice or yoga is incredibly helpful. And I think just healing more broadly, a lot of the time with conditions like endo, I see it in women who have had some sort of trauma during their life when they're younger. We know that a lot of the time when women are sexually abused, that can also be a condition that can follow. So I think, actually working on some like deep healing and trauma work often be really helpful. Pelvic pain, seeing a pelvic pain specialist, pelvic floor massage can be incredible for endo as well as abdominal massage. And sometimes I like to keep it really simple when we talk about like stress and cortisol. Like, do you have a bath? If you have a bath, can you have a bath? Like, can you put it in your calendar and say, I'm going to have a bath 3 times a week? Just small things. I'm going to schedule a 30-minute walk every day outside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In nature, if you can. If you can't, you live in New York, maybe walking down the street. Like, these little tiny changes are so powerful. These are tools in our toolbox.
This episode is brought to you by BUMPSUIT, the modern company redefining maternity and beyond. As a mom of 3, I've tried every single baby carrier on the market, and at BUMPSUIT, we came up with the best baby carrier out there. We took all the problems from the baby carriers we loved and we solved them in this one baby carrier called the Armadillo. The Armadillo has a lot of different pockets for your phone, your keys. It even has a space for your water bottle to hang from. It has a weather cover. It's got a back lumbar for that support, especially after giving birth. It is great for newborns up until, my 3.5-year-old still asks for it. Go to bumpsuit.co. That's bumpsuit.co. Use the code THEVILLAGE20 for 20% off your entire order and get an Armadillo baby carrier. Do yourself a favor.
You're such a trailblazer and a badass. You have epilepsy, endometriosis, you lose a fallopian tube. How was your road to now having a baby?
I think I was incredibly, incredibly fortunate. It's funny because we think we have so much control over these things. And I think when you go through a tough journey, you realize that we actually have less control than we like to think. And I think that's why it's so painful and terrifying. And, I'm a very spiritual person, and I very much believe in a sort of power greater than myself. And those other moments just it wasn't my time. And I had the ectopic, I lost a tube, I got pregnant again, not long after, maybe 4 months after. My problem never seemed to be getting pregnant, but more so holding on to the pregnancy. And then I lost out on another miscarriage. And honestly, Nicole, all I can really say is like, I can remember the pain like it was yesterday. And that's why I'm talking about it. And I still want to be someone that just raises like awareness and understanding for what it's like to lose babies, because it was one of the hardest times in my life. It was so incredibly painful. I was triggered on a daily basis. I would open Instagram, and my Instagram, you know how our phones are listening to us, and I was just fed images of pregnant women on my discovery page. I was getting ads for pregnancy this, pregnancy that. I just remember working from my kitchen table, and I would look out the window and all I would see was pregnant women walking down the street. It was just like everywhere. And it's hard because you can't really curate your world in that. Okay, fine. You can block certain friends who are recently pregnant on Instagram. You can ask your friends not to send you pictures, but you can't really curate a world to protect that just raw space that your heart is operating in. And I got to a point, I think, where I don't think, my husband, I don't think my friends could really support me. I only wanted to connect with people that were going through the same thing. And that's why I started our community that we have online. And I speak to that as another tool in the toolbox, because I started this community. It was nothing to do with the business. I started it selfishly because I needed support. And it started as this beautiful WhatsApp community, which grew and grew. We ended up taking it over to another platform that was successful for a minute and then wasn't. And now we've brought it back to WhatsApp. It's full of women with endo, with PMDD, with PCOS. And it's really just a space of, sharing information and just supporting each other. And I know you guys have an amazing community as well. So I think you understand this more than anyone, but I always hammer home the point that like, we heal in community. We need to feel seen. We need that power of identification of someone just saying, like, I fucking get it. I remember I would spend hours at night in bed when my husband was asleep, finding these forums where I would be obsessively trying to find women that had 2 miscarriages, but one of them as an ectopic, because I was just finding attach myself to a slither of hope that I was going to to have a baby, because it's hard to hold on to hope when you've been through that. So you losing the second one was just worse than the first, because it was just that feeling of like, I don't know if I'm going to get there, you know? So I did get there in the end.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm very, very lucky, and I would love another one, but who knows what the future holds. I'm just trying to enjoy him and stay grateful, and it's been 10 months, and I'm so sleep deprived and all the rest of it, but it's made me feel whole. And I hate to say that, because we really should find that feeling of wholeness within ourselves, but I wanted to be a mother so much,
Yeah. How did you guys, after that, did you consider IVF or anything like that?
It's funny, I was actually having this conversation yesterday with a couple of women, but I did have a consultation, and I went and had my left tube flushed to see if it was severely blocked, which it wasn't. And I definitely went to the wrong place. And I think there are really great fertility clinics out there. The problem is, especially in this country, it's a business, and
yes,
people want your business, and they want your money, and they don't often have necessarily like your best interests at heart. But I had a very like negative experience. I was basically told there was a lot of fear mongering, and I remember the doctor saying to me, I don't think it's smart that you try again, because the chances of you losing it are incredibly high. And you need to ask yourself how you're going to feel when you lose your third baby. And just the way that she phrased it, and that was just, I mean, it really put my back up. And luckily I was like, I don't trust you. I would never work with you anyway. And I come back to intuition. I just felt like I wanted to go one more time. Do you know what I mean? I was like, roll the dice. I want to go again. Like I knew I had a little bit of strength left in me. I made sure that I took a really long time after the second one to try to heal my body and my heart, more than to heal my heart.
Yes,
My heart
absolutely.
I got really lucky, and that was my baby boy. So
how long is this period for you from your first miscarriage to losing your fallopian tube to getting pregnant for the third time?
I think I got pregnant the first time at 33 and ended up having my baby boy at 35. But I was on the journey for so much longer than that, because I wanted a baby from about the age of 31. To answer your question, I guess it was nearly 3 years, but it felt longer, because for a long time I was trying to convince my husband that I wanted us to try for a baby, and he wasn't quite ready. And that was quite a painful period as well, of just trying to,
Come on. Yeah.
And I kept saying it might be tough for me, and lo and behold, it was tough. But, and now it's really for me about just continuing to kind of talk about these topics that are taboo. I think our society just does not leave enough room and create enough space for the grief that individuals go through when they lose children. I think that we sort of talk about it in this nonchalant way of like, oh, my friend had 3 miscarriages, like at least you can get pregnant. All of these things that people say to you that are just not very helpful. And so, I think if we're talking about sort of tools in the toolbox, what I would say to somebody that wants to support someone who's going through like what we have, and I'm sorry that you also experienced that. And I think, again, it's like there's always a silver lining, isn't there? And I think having lost 2 babies, it's made me so much more grateful for where I am today. For anyone that wants to support anyone, sometimes it's just about listening, and just sort of saying, like, how can I support you? Encouraging people to join a community like Looni's, where we have a lot of women that are going through that. And I think just remembering that, reminding someone that it is nothing that they have done that has caused that, or nothing that they could have done better.
That's the biggest thing, is you blame yourself, and you're like, something's wrong with me, or I did this wrong, or I ate the wrong food, or I worked out, or I was too emotional, or you just don't feel like you're good enough when you go through that. I'm so curious about having epilepsy and endometriosis and then becoming pregnant. Are you still taking medication for your epilepsy at the same time as considering IVF, at the same time as, all these things are happening in your life? Like, how are you doing and managing? It seems really challenging.
No, I stopped taking epilepsy medication when I was in my late 20s, when I discovered and started using medical cannabis. Cannabis has been an incredible tool in not only managing my seizures, but managing my endometriosis, another tool in the toolbox.
So you completely stopped with your epilepsy medication and transitioned to cannabis.
And I say that with, caveat that I just always caution to anyone that I'm incredibly lucky that cannabis has ended up being a more efficacious medicine than traditional anticonvulsants. But that isn't the case for a lot of people. And someone who is looking to do that should always consult their doctor. I was very, very fortunate. This plant has been, I made a documentary which has finally come to fruition, a 6-year documentary project about epilepsy and medical cannabis. It's been an incredible tool for me and continues to be. I use cannabis to manage my seizure condition. I use cannabis to help as a tool to manage my endometriosis. It helps me with sleep. And when I talk about medical cannabis broadly, that is everything from CBD to THC to CBG. We're so lucky to have access to it because a lot of people don't.
Did you have to alter your intake like during pregnancy or even now?
I used cannabis throughout my pregnancy. I'm mostly using a CBD rich extract. I use very little THC anyway, but I had to have a conversation at the beginning of my pregnancy with my doctor, which for me it was go back on anticonvulsants. I felt were far more harmful to my growing baby, and I felt much more comfortable staying with what I was using, or try and come off everything entirely and risk having a seizure and falling down the stairs and losing my baby that way. So I had an incredibly supportive OB, and we decided to keep me on it. And it was incredible. And I used cannabis when I was healing from my birth, C-section, postpartum, and I'm not talking about lighting up like 10 joints a day here, but I did use.
I hope that the world is evolved enough by now to see like cannabis used in a different way.
Yeah.
Than the old cartoons.
It's a wonderful plant, and I feel very connected to that plant, and very grateful for all the healing that has kind of come from it for me.
Yeah, I can't wait to see your documentary. I've been following this journey, and I just think it's so special for the world to have someone like you really bringing this to light and providing insight into this medicine that can be and hopefully will be legalized worldwide so more people can have access to it. I love the work that you do. It's so important, and you don't have to do it, but the fact that you take time and you're so intentional and you really have this purpose and this drive to find out more, to know more, you're so curious, and to bring this research and to shine light onto these issues that are deemed kind of like taboo in ways.
I feel the same about you for creating platforms like this to amplify people's voices and missions, and I think that similarly is very noble work, because you are finding topics that you are passionate about and you're bringing other people together to raise awareness and to bring these topics to the forefront. So same to you.
Thank you. So what words of wisdom would you like to share with our community to end this informative and incredible episode today?
I think something that I always come back to is that vulnerability is really a superpower. I guess that's what I've led with for a number of years, and oftentimes struggle with others and I know it's not as easy for people to feel vulnerable, but I think, and it does require a lot of work, of a lot of healing, but I think being vulnerable allows healing for yourself. It allows healing for others. It inspires other people to be vulnerable and to be open. And then when people can be vulnerable and open, they can connect in an authentic way. And I think that for the longest time, everything from the advocacy work that I have done, like surrounding epilepsy, the fight for patient access with cannabis, women's health issues, advocating for endometriosis, and now the work that I'm doing with Looni and our community, and it's all comes back to me, like the nucleus of it all, the core of it all, of all of my work has been truth and vulnerability. And I've seen such incredible things happen to myself through being vulnerable. And I see it, you see what it does to other people. And so I think there's something really, really like incredibly profound and powerful about being authentically vulnerable. And so I would say to people to try it. And oftentimes you can turn something that's perhaps the most challenging thing that you've been through in your life, the most painful, the thing that you want to hide away from, and you can be vulnerable and share that with people, and not only find healing in yourself, but give that to other people as well.
For someone that finds it difficult to be vulnerable, how do you really relax into that or step into that? Like, what's a tool?
That's a great question. I think, first of all, find someone who's being vulnerable and ask yourself how it makes you feel. Because a lot of the time when other people are vulnerable and soft and authentic, and when I say soft, I don't mean soft perhaps in the way that one might think I mean soft. I mean like softening yourself. And I think just asking yourself, how does it make you feel when that person is being vulnerable? Does it make you feel calm? Does it make you feel safe? Does it make you feel empowered? Does it make you feel like, you're okay to share back with them? Usually it does. You won't usually find yourself judging that person when they're in their truth, because you're not like, oh, they're putting on a mask, or they're inauthentic, or they're disingenuous, or you often just you feel it in every like cell of your body. You feel that authenticity. And so if it's having that impact on you, then imagine what the impact you could have on someone else. And that doesn't mean you have to like take to the stage and talk about your deepest, darkest fears. Maybe it's just you're going for a coffee with a friend and you decide to actually tell them what is happening at home or in your relationship, or with your sick mother, or whatever it might be. And I think it's up to the person to find to kind of recognize when the space is safe to be vulnerable, but giving it a try.
I feel like I love your vulnerability. It's just so beautiful, and it just shines. And I really appreciate you sharing your story with our community. I know that they are going to really appreciate it. And I'm so happy to amplify your voice and for our community to have a place to find you, Chelsea Leyland, because you are amazing and we love you so much. And I'm so happy to have you on today. I know you're a busy new mom, but thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you for having me. Thanks for everything you're doing. It was really lovely. And thank you for your patience with this.
Oh my gosh. Anytime. For real. Thank you, babe.
Thank you for listening to the Village podcast, where we share unique stories from all walks of life, normalizing conversations and experiences in pregnancy, childbirth, postpartum, and motherhood. We are here to serve, and we really want to hear from you. So feel free to share, comment, like, and subscribe to keep this village growing. We are eternally grateful for you being with us and sharing space today.